This is Cover Your Ears with Brian Geller. Unlocking the secrets of the music industry.
The numbers all go to 11.
You're about to get the inside scoop from the industry insiders.
You go with the Van Halen tickets.
You never know what you're going to hear on Cover Your Ears.
Now raise your goblet of rock.
Happy holidays, friends, musicians, and family. Welcome to this edition of the Cover Your Ears podcast. You're listening to episode number 9 here at Ultimate Ears Studio in Southern California, and I'm your host, Brian Geller. So what is usually a slower time of the year for the Atomic Punks has been quite the opposite. We just did the 2 shows with ex-Diamond David Lee Roth / White Lion bassist James Lomenzo, played a fun backyard party this past weekend, and tomorrow head to Mobile, Alabama to open up for Zebra. Yeah, that's Zebra. For future shows and details on the Atomic Punks, you can go to Facebook, you can check out Twitter, or go to our official website at www.theatomicpunks.com. And next week, I'll reveal details on a just-booked New Year's Eve gig right here in Southern California. This episode of Cover Your Ears is brought to you by Ultimate Ears Pro, setting the standard for custom in-ear monitors for more than 20 years. I've been using Ultimate Ears in-ear monitors for over 6 years now, and they're the real deal. If you're a musician and still using wedges, take it from me, no joke, give yourself a break and take your performance to the next level with custom in-ear monitors. Musicians, my singing career was about done. Too much singing to go with lots of bad technique. Ultimate Ears changed everything. To learn more, visit pro.ultimateears.com. Well, today's guest is a fixture in the Southern California tribute band scene. Now, when you first see Kenny Metcalf, one tends to do a double take because he's a dead ringer for Elton John. Or is it Sir Elton John? Whatever, right? But more importantly, he sounds just like him. He plays a mean piano, and the costumes, second to none. We hit a lot of subjects during our talk. His transition from drums to piano, what it was like being the keyboard player for Stryper, and the health issues that almost cost him his life.
I have to admit, I talked to my wife last night, and we were betting if you would come in the famous Dodger Stadium outfit.
Yeah, well, who won?
I lost. It's nice to see an Ultimate Ears shirt, though, but, you know.
Hey, I like the Ultimate Ears shirt. I wear this all the time. I really do. And, Of course, you know, we tie-dyed it.
I like that.
So, or
black
just ran it through the bleach, yeah.
Right, when you dye the black shirts like that and do the whole tie-dye thing, it turns into a nice shade of brown.
Yep, and black and brown. And the white stayed white, though, on the Ultimate, ears.
It's perfect.
Now I got to get me one for every day of the week.
So what's happening with you? What's new, Kenny?
Just been on the road and getting off the road right now, actually, for a couple weeks, and then slowing down. Summer, it's coming to an end. But we spent the summer just all over the United States. It was a blast.
Yeah, summertime for my band is definitely the busiest time of the year. August, definitely, we do the most shows of any month the whole year. Do you find the same thing for you guys?
Yeah, we normally start getting busy in March, and then it escalates, and then we hit April, and we're train rolling already, just plowing right through. And then all of a sudden the summer's over, and it just went so fast already. We did a show last week in Pasadena. Pasadena show was just a kick. Right. It's outdoors outside the Pasadena Civic Auditorium, and so they build the way it's set up. You come up from the street and you walk up like there's like 12 sets of stairs and a bunch of bars, handrails in between. So people they can form lines to go into the place. Well, they had all those bars blocked off and draped with black, curtain. they put a drum riser up there, and they made that place a stage. And then they had lighting that shot up the building, and sound system was great. And you got traffic driving by, but they had tables set up where people, they're paying to come in and have food and beer and wine and whatever.
When you're in full costume, I mean, you look very similar to Elton John, so most likely you're stopping traffic.
Oh no, yeah, traffic. Like people were stuck at the signal, and all of a sudden you see windows coming down.
That's great.
and then from my point of view, looking out over where the audience was going to be, you got a street behind them, and then a shopping center that has a whole open corridor directly straight across, and that filled up with people. And then behind it was another street. You could just keep looking and see people, and they could stand there and they could hear it from wherever they were. But the paying customers were all up in front and tables and dancing, and but it was like, I'll play that place again. That was a blast.
How many shows are you doing right now a year?
We actually averaged about 35 to 40 right now. Yeah, the venues are always, we're not playing dives. We only played summer festivals this year. We only played about 7, I think, that were outdoor summer concert in the park.
Right. I would think the crowds for the summer park situations like that are perfect for what you do. In my situation, doing the Van Halen stuff, the city parks, we get those every once in a while. But for the music of Elton John, I would think that would be perfect.
Yeah, it is. The crowds, that we played to, they've all, they're always into it. But we've been playing performing arts centers and stuff like that, and just how casinos, lots of casinos this year. So. That's why I'm saying we, as opposed to, when we started out, it was summer concerts. That's how you get your break into the, you started doing like Hermosa Festival,
right?
Stuff like that. And so that was where it began, and you were that was like your life bread,
sure.
For starting out our first year. And then it went from there. We played with the Fab Four the first year, and things just kept escalating. And then next thing I knew, 2 years go by, and we're getting invited onto the world's greatest tribute bands. That opened up the door for us.
Well, let's back up a little bit. How old were you when you started playing the piano?
I was a freshman in high school, so
you started
16.
You started a little bit later than your typical.
I was a drummer
musician,
for 10
right?
years.
So you started drumming first.
When I was 6 years old, I started playing drums, and I come from I have a family history of musicians. So my cousins on my mom's side were musicians, her sister's kids. So they were influential on me wanting to play music because I was watching them play guitars. And then I had my mom's uncle. He used to play with the big bands, Tommy Dorsey, Benny Goodman, and all those guys. Yeah, when they came to town, they didn't bring bands with them, so they'd hire the local guys. So every time they rolled into town, he was one of the ones they would call. And so, he used to play, he was one of those, is it an alto sax? The one that looks like a clarinet, but it's
I think so.
So, but he played
I should
that.
know that.
He played that. He played all kinds of, of the woodwind stuff. And anyways, so come to find out, I have that family history of musicians. So my family, the history with them, I just wanted to be a musician. And I think watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, that was a real turning point for me at that early age.
Did you grow up in Southern California?
Yeah, I was born in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So Inglewood,
Inglewood. How funny. That's where my parents grew up. Inglewood, Hawthorne. Yeah. Lived across the street from the Beach Boys. And back then, that was a great neighborhood.
Yeah, no, my parents moved from Inglewood to La Mirada when I was, I think, 6 years old. And that was the year of the Watts riots.
Okay.
And the place that we were living at got completely burnt to the ground.
Is that right?
So we'd have still been there. So it was just like luck that they, I guess, stuff was.
So it happened right after you had moved?
Within a year, yeah.
Within a year.
The place was gone. Yeah, the riots all took place, and we were living in La Mirada. So when all that took place, so I grew up in La Mirada.
So brothers, sisters?
I have an older sister, and she was also influential on me with Elton, actually. In 1970, she brought home Elton John album that had his silhouette on it, and it just was entitled Elton John. And that was the album that he broke into America with. And
so was it the album cover that brought you first? Because right now, music, we don't have that visual aspect unless you see a great tribute band. Everything's digital and downloads, but back then...
Oh, the album covers were awesome. Yeah, no, my sister brought it home, and she put the record on, and she let me play it. So when she was gone, I was playing that, and then you open the album cover, and there's the band inside, and so there's Caleb Quay, Paul Buckmaster, who produced the album, all the string arrangements and stuff like that, and all the different guys.
And I'm going to interrupt you. You bring up Caleb, who you've played with before, right?
Oh yeah, that's the other thing is like, as a kid, 1970, that put me at age 12 in 1970. So I'm 12 years old, and I'm looking at this album, and you play it over and over again, and you just keep reading the names, and you open it up, and here you pull out the sleeve, and there's the lyrics to the song. And so at age 12, that album could turn on a 12-year-old and motivate him to want to be a musician. So the Beatles were like the inspiration for me to, at that point, I want to be a musician. Guitar looked too hard, drums were easier.
Right.
So I learned to play drums, and I started playing at age 6. And by the time I got to junior high, I was my freshman year. I was reading charts. I could play jazz, I could play rock, but I was playing in a junior high band. So you got the whole full orchestra kind of thing going on.
So you were into Elton John, you were into the Beatles. What else did you like back then?
Iron Butterfly, Cream. All the edgy bands, I dug them. But I grew up listening to everything from big bands because my parents listened to Elvis. Saw Elvis when I was a kid.
It's kind of how it was back then. We didn't identify with just one particular band or music. It was everything.
Oh yeah, I grew up listening to Trini Lopez.
Wow.
And because my dad was into Trini. Of course, Neil Diamond, my dad was a Neil Diamond fan, Elton. So whatever he had, I was listening to that. He had Kingston Trio, stuff like Peter, Paul, and Mary. They had all this, stuff that we would consider more, eclectic nowadays.
But it's interesting, though, that when the parents are interested in music and are playing different types of music, and music is around us growing up, whether we like it or not, it rubs off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so the influence for me started, like I said, as a kid playing drums. I played drums for 10 years. And by the time I got into junior high, I was challenging the 8th grade drummer, because the end of the year, the drummer, they put a jazz band together that got to do a special thing when the bands went around to the different schools to play. Right. And all of a sudden, now instead of it being the full with the horns and the violins and everything going on, you got these guys broke out and they're rocking, and they're getting to play. And so I challenged the 8th grader and for a drum off because I wanted that spot. I said, I'm better than him.
Will you jump on the drum kit sometimes during your shows now?
I'll get up. Yeah, I actually do. I'll get up behind Raleigh and I'll play during leave on. I'll get up and I'll grab a pair of sticks and I'll kind of just beat right behind him. He's still on the drums, keeping him going, and I'm doing tom-tom fills and stuff like that.
All about the show.
But right? Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. So it's fun from that aspect. But when I got to high school, my freshman year, if what happened to me wouldn't have happened, I would probably still be a drummer today. And because the freshman year is the year when you start meeting other guys that are musicians. And at that point in junior high, you only knew a handful of guys that could maybe play a guitar.
Right.
And so you got together, you jammed, but most of it was playing to records or, different, put headset on or just blast your stereo and play your drums. And so, my freshman year, a junior comes walking into drama, theater in the round. And there was a piano there. And he walks in and he starts playing Benny and the Jets. And that was the #1 song in 1973, my freshman year.
Okay.
Excuse me. And so he starts playing Benny and the Jets, and every girl in the place got up and went around that piano. and started singing with him. And I looked at my friend, who's now our Cat Stevens tribute that I produced.
Is that right?
And it was like, what are the chances that two guys would grow up together and be best friends, musically connected for years, doing studio work together and stuff. And he's spot on, Cat.
Amazing.
So I looked at him. I said, I've never had that effect on a girl while playing the drums. And my mom had just bought a piano. So I went home and I taught myself to play. I just started hearing notes and figuring them out and started playing.
Talk about timing, right?
Oh yeah. So
Amazing.
That was it. I gave up the drums, and it was either going to be I was going to go out and buy that. Back in those days, Ludwig had just came out with a clear blue tint double kick drum set. And that was going to be my next kit. And it was like the latest thing. And now that's all retro. You go to the NAMM show and there they are again. It's like, oh, I just like to have one for the heck of it. So I taught myself to play piano. And that was 1973. And by 1985, 85, I was on the road with Stryper playing keyboards for them.
It didn't happen like that. So how did the whole Stryper thing happen? I mean, from my research, Stryper was a regular hard rock band on the LA scene, and then it was kind of your message that kind of turned them, right? Am I missing some of that?
No, you got it right. And they were playing regular gigs everywhere from Gazzarri's to the Country Club, Roxy, all those places everywhere in Hollywood. And they were playing with Rat, Motley Crue, Stormer. In fact, Tim Gaines, the bass player for Stryper, came out of Stormer. And but Stormer, all of them, Van Halen, all of those guys, they all were playing together.
Stormer used to play with Van Halen, and Rat back then was coming back, or they were coming from San Diego. They were called Mickey Rat. Someone needs to write a book on some of the bands that didn't quite make it out of that scene, and it's really interesting.
Well, and C.C. DeVille. DeVille.
Yeah, from Poison.
So, I mean, Stryper, they all were friends. They all played together. They all did shows together, and some of them hit it bigger. And so Stryper ended up in 1978, the La Mirada Performing Arts Center opened up, and it was brand new. They had, it was 77 or 78, and they just opened it up. It used to be a movie theater. You know, where I grew up going there and, throwing bubble gum at the screen as a little kid,
So you're there as a kid.
And so now,
And now it's a performing arts center. They made
it a killer performing arts center. And so my mom had told me, she goes, hey, she says, why don't you guys go audition? They're having a talent show. And I just thought, this place is 1,100 seats. I want to play that place. So I wrote an original song. It was kind of a ripoff on the idea from Boston's. We were just another band out of Boston.
Right.
We were just another band out of Boston, on the road to try to make ends meet.
So how did yours go?
So the whole thing was they're talking about how they made it. So I wrote the song called "We're on Our Way, We Made It If Our Friends Could See Us Now."
Okay.
And so, anyways, it was just the same idea that, hey, to our friends. So we wrote this song because they were all going to be in the audience that night. So we wanted to just, hey. And
let's face it, musicians rip off musicians. So,
of
and
course.
Who's going to see that show?
Ideas, but it didn't sound like their song.
Right.
But anyway, so we wrote this original, went in and auditioned. So we found out there was another band auditioning. So it was like, oh, cool, we're going to have like competition. Well, these guys were called the Firestorm Band. The night we get there, they made it, we made it, and we get up and it's a competition now. It's a talent show with ballerinas and ventriloquists and everything else going on. And so we got up and started our song. Just blew the doors off the place. My mom actually had one of those cassette players that were like rectangle and had the big buttons on them. You had to hold two of them down. She took that in and she recorded us. Well, the Firestorm Band, they're also known as Stryper. That's where we first met. But it was Robert Sweet and the Firestorm Band. So Robert Sweet's little brother, Michael Sweet, was like 14 or 15 years old, and they're singing Johnny Be Good. So I have that recording
Is that right?
I have that recording of them. So, anyways, we kicked their butt. So I actually,
and they're the nicest guys. We've played with them on the Monster of Rock cruise a few times, and really good guys.
So, but that's where we first met, and then they ended up moving on the same street that my mom lived on. And let's see, I think in 80. I think at the time I was still living. I lived with my parents until I got married, so I was like 21. So I had still lived there. I got married when I was 22. So I was, going after the musician thing anyways. And these guys moved in on the block.
Kind of a theme going on here. Things just kind of fell into place, situations, right place, right time.
Yep. And so anyways, they move in, and we knew each other because of that talent show thing that we played together. So it was like a year or two later when they really it was a year later they moved in on my block. And so anyways, Oz Fox was not in the band at the time. Okay. And it was, so the
lead guitarist.
Yeah.
Right.
So he wasn't in the band at the time. I got married, ended up working at a auto distributor place. They sell auto parts. I just went in, I was cold call, and have you ever sold auto parts? No, but I could sell anything to anybody. I really need this job. My wife is pregnant. I have a baby in 9 months coming. Right. I need a job.
Right.
And so anyways, I end up working. And next door to that place was a place called Intenge. And Intenge sold stuff to restaurants. Well, there was a guy in there that would come out every day and he'd play his guitar and he'd be practicing. Guy had long black hair and just ripping all the time. So I was talking to him, hey, I'm a musician too, and we got to, be friends. And so, I was talking to him, and I think I was even sharing who Christ was in my life at the time with him. Well, while that was happening, I'd go down and I'd see the Sweet Brothers, and they'd be having their rehearsals and stuff. I got really messed up with drugs at one point, and they saw me, and then all of a sudden they saw the change in my life. And so they were asking me about that. Well, how did that, So I just told them, I said, I accepted who Jesus was in my life and kind of turned my life around. Anyway, so I'm talking to them. I'm talking to this other guy at Intenge.
Amazing.
And the other guy was Oz Fox. And
crazy.
Oz tells me one day, he goes, I'm going down to, he doesn't even remember the story. He doesn't even remember it happened. But I remember he was saying, I'm going to go audition for these brothers that they have a rock band, And
it was the Sweet Brothers.
It was the Sweet Brothers. And next day he shows up, but he knew them. They went to school together, but they were looking for a guitar player, and so Oz went and auditioned. So the next day I asked him, so how'd it go? And he goes, I'm in the band. It's like, oh, hey, that's really cool. Within a week or two, boom, I got canned, just before my baby was born. So I spent 9 months hanging out with Oz and 9 months hanging out with the other guys. And so one day I walk in and they're all rehearsing, and Oz goes, them, and
How
and so
funny.
All of a sudden it's like Robert is like, he was the visionary behind Stryper, always was. He was, everything that happened because of Robert. It was his vision. And I remember they named the band Stryper because it rhymed with hyper. Everything yellow and black was Robert's thing anyways, as Rock's Regime, which was their band. So so they changed the name to Stryper. And I was there the day that Robert was looking on the wall at the letters that were cut out, that were their logo, the first version of their logo. And I'm telling you, he just went salvation through redemption, yielding peace, encouragement, and righteousness. That became their acronym for Stryper. And I was there the day that happened. And so then everything that they started to do started exploding and just taking off. And just nothing stopping them. And next thing you know, they're going on their first U.S. tour. And Robert had told me, he says, hey, he goes, I really think you're supposed to go with me, play keyboards for us. I just started a neon sign business. My dad had put me in business for myself. Okay. And I bet neon for 16 years.
Wow.
So anyways, I ended up, and you've seen the bling and the things that I do. I grew up in a sign shop. My dad had a sign. So I learned how to make, how to work with plastics and my hands, routers, jigsaws, bandsaws, gluing things. And so I'm really good at it.
So
it's helped with what I do now.
Exactly.
So anyways.
It's interesting too, because I remember seeing in my high school years in the early 80s, going to the LA street scene, and I saw Stryper. and they were different. There was a vibe to it. I love the vocal structure of it, and it was interesting because that's when the Bibles were thrown out.
Yeah, and that was a legitimate thing that they did too. I mean, it wasn't, they weren't phony about it. They were, they were really trying to do this,
Sure.
And so spread a good message as opposed to a negative thing that was going on at the time too. So Robert had asked me to go on the road with him, and I says, I can't do it. I turned him down. I went home and I told my wife, and she goes, well, what'd you tell him? And I said, I told him no.
She said, are you out of your mind?
She goes, you go back and you tell him you'll do it. I go, yeah, but Dad just put me in business. He just put a lot of money in to open a company for me. And so I had like 10 major things that said, no, you can't do this. And every one of them individually started melting away to where it was like it was down to the last thing, which was to going, hey, Dad, I really believe I'm supposed to go on the road with these guys. And my dad, instead of freaking out, he just said, you know what? He goes, my dad wouldn't have wanted me to miss something like this. He goes, go do it. I'll take care of your company while you're gone. So he hired another glass vendor to come in and work the company. And so my first tour with Stryper was, I actually went for free. So I mean,
So
I walked.
you played for free.
I walked by faith, man. In those days, I really did.
Did they feed you?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I got $245 per diem every week.
Okay.
So, but most of the time you're on the bus. The bus is a real tour bus, so you're sleeping in it, and you only need your per diems, on the days you don't have a show and you're on the road, to get your incidentals or whatever. And so,
how long did this all go on for? How
10
long did
weeks.
So 10 weeks, but how long did you tour with Stryper?
I did 2 U.S. tours with them in Canada. I went for free. And so I literally had people in the church giving us money because I really believed I was supposed to do this. I really believed that God wanted me to be a part of that thing. And so I went by faith, man. We never discussed money or anything, but I would take those per diems and I was saving them for, and
Right.
I would send it at home every week to my wife, whatever I didn't use, man, I did a MoneyGram and sent it home, Western Union thing. And
Wow.
so, anyways, at the end of the tour, I think there was like 2 weeks left, and Robert, he says, hey man, he goes, we made a killing this tour. You were a part of that. So he says, you're going to get $5,000. So I was making, $745 a week if you considered the per diem involvement. So I got that
cool?
at the end of.
How cool is that? How amazing to have a band actually take care of one of their members after the fact.
Yeah. And I was their first official, unofficial member. Their keyboardist, they always had a keyboardist, but he was the unofficial fifth member. It's kind of like being Pete Best.
Right.
kind
right.
of thing. And they had us covered and hidden, but we were on stage, but, never really got ever introduced. They introduced me one time.
You're behind the curtain with the Wizard of Oz thing,
kind of what it was. And I was singing fourth part harmony. So, and playing the keyboards. And so so I did the first tour with them. I did the second tour, and the second tour, it's hard when you got little kids and a wife that you really love, and to be away from them that long.
Sure.
And so they were talking about a world tour and going to be gone 6 months at a time. I was like, you know what? I'm not willing to. It wasn't worth it to me. And so my daughter.
You put your family first.
Oh yeah, it was like the 20 weeks out of my life that I was away from them, the 2 different tours. That's 20 weeks I didn't have with those kids. And so I decided, I'm going to get off the road. So I left the band. I just told them I can't do the next tour. I'm not going to, I don't want to do it. And they were already eyeing another guy anyways. So,
really?
Oh yeah, which was fine. And he took over and stayed with them until the end, until they pretty much, split up. So, he really wanted the part, and he was coming up and talking to me anyways, Brent Jeffers. And he goes, man, I sure admire you, man. Get to do this. And I was like, hey, man, just never know. And I knew already that I was going to leave.
Do you still talk to those guys at all? Do you ever touch base?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm real close to Tim. Robert, I haven't heard from him in a couple of years. Oz, run into him in Vegas when I was there for the Vegas Rocks Award, and we were nominated Best Tribute. So we had to go there for that, and that just happened to be Oz's category to come out and announce. And,
that's funny.
That and a band he was producing won in a different category. I bump into Oz every once in a while, but Tim, I'm real close to him. And Tim came on the scene. He left Stormer. So when he left Stormer, Robert Sweet all of a sudden saw there was a different bass player in. So he called the band up, got Tim's number. Tim came over, auditioned, and boom, he was in, and that was it. And Stryper was, so I kind of backtracked a little. It's like, okay, all those things. I played more shows now with my own band.
How funny.
In the same kind of venues that Stryper played. And that was where it was like, you know, the transition. Now I get to play these kind of venues, but I'm the headliner. It's kind of really cool.
Interesting. So let's switch gears here a little bit.
Okay.
Talk to us about your life and death experience. I didn't know anything about that, and we've known each other quite some time, so it's an unbelievable story. I mean, can you share that with us?
My immune system crashed, and my body was trying to kill me. So I had sores inside my mouth. It's where it began. I mean, if you know how soft white bread is in the center, you know, there's nothing there. But if you bite into that, if I bit into that, it would tear my gums off. That's how this disease was attacking me and created sores. It got to the point where I couldn't eat. Drinking water was like drinking broken glass. It hurt so bad. And then it spread to the outside of my body to where I was covered in sores. And there was no medication that was going to help. Nothing that they could do. So, I mean, you imagine if you have, you know, a little blister, how that feels and
Sure.
how they hurt, you know, if you pop them. Well, I had this all over my body and they were huge and they would spread and they get bigger and bigger. And then it gets into your bloodstream and then that sore spreads into your bloodstream and creates another sore somewhere else. And then it just multiplies. And so,
did they attribute that to stress? Is how it
stress could
started?
have been it. It could have been black mold that was in a condo the year. But I mean,
Wow.
I was highly stressed out over business and over losing everything. That had a lot to do with it. It could have been that to make my immune system completely crash on me. It took them 8 months to figure out what I had. And once they did, they said, well, you're going to live maybe 5 or 6 years. You're always going to be on heavy medications and you're going to die a painful death. And I was like, I looked at the doctor that told me that. And I said, you know what? I said, you don't know the God that I serve. I told him that. And he goes, no, you don't seem to understand the gravity of this thing. And I said, no, you don't understand the God that I serve.
Wow.
And so I'm just being honest with you. This is what I said to him. So I ended up, he gave me all this medication. I wasn't going to take it because I read all this, you know, it's like those TV commercials nowadays. Hey, do you think, you know, this could cause death? It could cause liver failure or this. But if you think this is good for you, then
if you're okay with dying in 6 months, take this medication.
So I was like, I didn't want to do it. And so I started going to naturalists and anything I could do, you know, as well as praying all the time. And so anyways, what I was doing was amping up my immune system with all these things that are good for the body and great for the immune system. But if your immune system is damaged and you speed it up, it caused it to attack me quicker. So what would have possibly taken 5 to 6 years, it took 1.75 years to get me to death's door.
Wow.
And I'd asked God to kill me 3 times because it was so painful, you know, look at your loved ones and there's no desire anymore to be here because you're in that much pain. So I have been to that place.
How did it all turn around for you?
Well, you know, it was a miracle. The doctors even said it was a miracle. My wife took me to UCI hospital. And Shar, my daughter, gets on the phone and says, Mom, Dad's leaving, you know, and I'm fading. And it was done. I'd made peace the night before. Had Stryper's fan base was praying for me. I had people all over the world praying for me. And so the day that she rolled me into the hospital, I looked like a drug addict. And I was about 125 pounds and there was nothing left. I'm sitting in a wheelchair, slumped over, and there's no life in me. And I was saying goodbye. And they rolled me in the hospital. My sister-in-law had met a nurse the night before at a thing at her church. And she says, we've helped people with that disease. You know, they've lost fingers, they've lost all kinds of stuff. And but bring them in to UCI tomorrow. So it was a kind of a God thing there, you know, I would really say, because it was really a miracle. And when I got there.
Kind of another timing thing for you, Kenny.
Yeah. And they had nurses and doctors waiting for me. They took me in, IVs, medication. But as I was going down the hallway and they're rolling me in, my eyes were literally rolling back in my head. I was fading out. Life was over. And my wife yells, "You're not leaving yet. You're not leaving me."
That's unbelievable.
And something snapped in my spirit. And from that moment on, everything that doctors started doing for me, my body started receiving it and accepting it, where other things weren't working. And so the doctor that was over me at that time said, "Your turnaround, we didn't have anything to do with that. That was a miracle." But then they maintained me for the next 10 years on IV treatments that were state of the art. I mean, I had the best doctors in the world literally brought to me at UCI Hospital for this disease. The specialist in the world was at that hospital, and he treated me, and he released me a year ago. Well, hasn't released me. He still monitors me, but they took me off all medication a year ago, May. So we're looking at, it's been 16 months now.
Do you think that to go through something like that has helped you become what you are today, doing the Elton John tribute? I mean, because I see a lot of tribute bands. I talk to a lot of people. I've played with a lot of bands. And I don't see anybody out there that has the drive to succeed in their band like you do.
Well, yeah, I think it had a lot to do with it. I think I still have found favor. I think that favor is, supernatural to a certain degree. Because, I mean, not even to a certain degree. I really think it's just favor. I don't know why, because it's like, why didn't I die? I'm still here. And then, 3 years later, I'm muscle atrophy, but I'm getting better. But I mean, literally the first show that I did, doing an Elton show, it took me 2 weeks to recover from doing Hermosa Festival was the first show. So 3 1-hour sets, but I mean, I was in bed for 2 weeks, but then I'm getting stronger. Then I did another show and I'd be in bed for a week and a half, and then it got to the point where I could do a show and it wasn't kicking my butt anymore. I was getting stronger. But my friend, he had come up to me and he says, "Listen," he goes, "tribute bands are playing the kind of venues you played when you toured with Stryper." He goes, "You could probably get out and work again,
So what year was this when you got the idea to do the Elton John?
7 years ago. So we're at 16, so it was 2009? Yeah. And so I said, well, let's see if I sound like Elton. So I had a recording. I had a house room built on.
Was it the sound you thought of first, or was it the look you thought of first?
No, sound.
Because you look like him. You look like him.
That's
right.
I cut my hair now and I dye it to look more like him too. But I mean, I never thought I looked like him. But the weird thing was, I recorded "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road," and my wife came home because I had a little 24-channel recording unit at the house. She comes home and I, being a keyboardist, I could do everything on the keyboard, so I literally soundtracked that song with every little thing, and I started singing all the backup vocals, and I studied how he did it, and so I played it back, and it was, my wife walked in, and she goes, "Is that you or is that Elton?" Because she knew I was working on it. So I called my friend, I said, "Okay, let's do it." He was the original drummer at the time for our show, and so we spent 12 to 14 months putting the show together. I went from playing Hermosa Festival, always 4,000 people right in front of you. Our very first show, we're headlining an outdoor summer thing, which was great. And then to 4 months later playing at Club Nokia with the Fab Four, 5 songs in their show. And I patterned the way the show was built around how the Fab Four did it, because they went meticulously after the look, mannerisms, and all of that. And I've never seen Elton in concert.
Really?
Other than, thank God for YouTube.
Right.
And so I found everything that I needed from that. And so started, building the costumes, making them as outlandish as I can. The Dodger outfit, remaking the Bob Mackey Dodger outfit. Yeah.
And God told you how to sound like Elton John.
I'm not kidding.
You have to tell me what's up with that.
I lived this whole life. I mean, ever since I was a kid, little things happened. And I found that when I called on God, and I'm not preaching at anybody who's listening to this, I'm really not. I just found that when I asked him for something, it happened. That was why when the doctors, I had no reason to doubt that God wouldn't intervene in my life. So when the doctors first told me that you're going to die, and I told them, no, you don't know the God that I serve. Well,
do you believe that God chose you to experience that because he knew you could handle it?
I think so. At the same time, it caused me to, how to treat people. I appreciate life. I'm not a perfect person. I don't ever claim to be. I've got my crap that's still in my life that I do that's, is just, everybody's got stuff. But I just found, that certain things were going to happen in my life that were out of my control. And so with the thing with where I'm going with this with the band was when my friend asked me to do the Elton thing, we put that together. And then a couple months later after that, we get out, we start playing with the Fab Four and their show. And then I'm laying in bed 2 years later. And there's video of us from playing everywhere from the fair, OC Fair. It just keeps going uphill. Good things happening.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden I get an email from a lady named Katie Darrell. And she says, hey, I represent Mark Cuban and Ryan Seacrest and Access TV, and we're going to be putting together, this show. It's going to be called The World's Greatest Tribute Bands. Would you like to be on the show?
Right.
Which you were on the same season.
Right.
Season 1.
Nobody
knew what that was. And it was like, are you kidding? Yes. So I was discovered while I was laying in bed via YouTube and videos out there. So the divine intervention thing, I have had nothing to do. I mean, I work hard at what I do, but every door that's open, I've not had to kick a single one down. And that's the difference between having to get out there and you're trying to make your life successful and stuff. When it's just like this favor,
Right.
But I have to still practice. I still have to, go after it. I make the costumes. I, got our seamstress for the band that cuts all the clothes for me, but I go and I find the material. I look at his costumes and I go and I find what I need and then bring it to her. She'll cut it, put it together, and then I bling it. If there's rhinestones,
I find it's the funnest part about being in the band is putting together the costumes.
Oh man. Yeah.
It really is. It's like celebrating Halloween every weekend.
I know we get to do what most people don't get to do. Now, and the other thing is, from the standpoint of what we get to do, it's not a cover band. There are different versions of tributes, but the ultimate tribute is the one that goes after every little nuance. If you go and you turn on a movie and you're going to watch the Buddy Holly story, if the guy doesn't look and sound like Buddy Holly, you don't get sucked into the movie. He's got a Russian voice,
Right.
and he's doing, and Buddy Holly, it's like that doesn't convince you. And so
we come from a visual era. We come from the record album.
Yeah.
We come from browsing in record stores and buying records, not based sometimes on the music, but rather based on the album cover. And I think that has a lot to do with tribute bands.
Everything that I do, and I speak for me, as a tribute, was everything that I wanted to do from being a little kid. My mother tells me that when I was 3 years old, I would stand out on the tree stump and I'd start singing songs. There's nobody there, but imagining there was an audience. And I would just stand out there with my arms up in the air and I'd be singing. And so from the time I was in junior high, I wanted to be an actor. And so I started taking, acting lessons in school, tried to get an agent, just didn't know how to go about that. I had an agent, but I didn't really know how to do the commercials and how to go out and sell yourself.
Right.
Through high school, was in drama and musical theater. And everything that a tribute does is musical theater. So, it's just not putting the costume on. It's taking the role of the person. And the first show that I did, my daughter saw it. She wasn't in the band at the time. She didn't actually run the band and own the band like she does now, Charlene.
And she's a backup singer in your band,
yeah,
right?
She's Kiki D in the band. Best way to give your kids an inheritance is give them a business. And so my dad did that to me. And Char owns Elton the early years.
Is
LLC.
that right?
She owns me. She runs the company, but she's got other
she's
bands
owned you
now
for
that
a
she
long
manages.
time.
Yeah. Oh, but the musical theater thing.
Right.
And so that's where what I do when I go out, it's everything that it's acting. So the actor part comes out.
But to do the acting part, I think what some bands miss out on is they approach the acting part and the look part before they've polished up the music. So I think when you have the acting part and the costume part, but the music isn't there, it looks cheap to me.
Yeah. And being the side of the musician that I am, it's like, okay, had to go at it. Playing Elton's music has made me a better keyboardist.
Oh, I bet.
Seriously, made me better than I was 7 years ago. It's just amazing what I've learned. We're the production. So every night when we go out and do a show, I got to walk on stage. And that's what I was saying. My daughter Shar said after watching me at Hermosa Festival, she goes, well, you were Elton and then you were you. And then you were Elton and then were you. You can't be a third party. You can't do this. When you walk on stage, you can't talk third person. This is what Elton would do. You got to walk out and be the illusion. And that's what hypnotism is. Hypnosis is get sucked into the movie. And where the emotion makes you cry at the end of that movie is because you got sucked into it. And that's what we do. If we're good actors, we're good musicians, we're good singers. Every night we got to go out and be that person. So it's a live production. What we do, it's just not a cover band. A cover band just goes out and sings. They don't have to sound the part.
So do you address the crowd as Elton?
Absolutely. The only time I'm not Elton is at the very end of the show when I'm introducing the band and then I introduce myself. Thank you and good night. Right. Other than that, it's a play, and everybody. And that's how my band treats this. We're all cast in this. It's supporting roles. I just happen to be the lead in the show. Mm-hmm. But we take it from that standpoint. So when we go on stage, I'm British. I've got to sound British. I've got, I don't break character. I have people come up to me that are from England, and they're like, what part are you from, And it's the whole thing, it's like, where are you from? It's like, well, I'm from Worcestershire. And it's like, oh, I'm from there too. What part? I was like, oh,
so you've done your homework.
The southern side. I know. It's like.
Have you met Elton John before?
I met him in 1977 walking through Disneyland. The year I graduated high school, I walked right by him.
So what was he wearing?
He was wearing what he wore in the he had a Red Rocket Records jacket on, but he had the sailor cap, the white kind and turned down.
Right.
And he had wore the same thing on his very first trip to Disneyland. It was in the Captain Fantastic cartoon book that was inside the album.
Oh, that's great.
And I recognized him. He's dressed the same way.
Did you approach him?
Yeah. So I walked by him with my friend, and I said, hey, we just walked by Elton John. And that's, by the way, 1977, that's his heyday, man. He was like the biggest thing next to sliced bread, he was it. He was the guy. And so my friend's like, nah, and we're heading into Tomorrowland, and he was coming out right onto Main Street. So we circled around, 3 rows thick of people, ran 50 feet in front of him, and then circled around and just casually walked up to him. And I just walked up to him and I said, hey, can I shake your hand? I said, your music's inspired me to become a piano player. And he was like, oh,
that's
yeah.
Amazing.
So I shook his hand. I said, have fun. And I've never been like overly starstruck with people because they just know they're people and it's a vocation that they get to do that. And so I walked off and let him go that night. But now, I've gotten to play with Caleb. I've gotten a video response from Davy Johnstone, said he was going to watch us on Access TV, and he did. He called Caleb up the next day and said, get me a copy of that.
Well, have you heard the story of Elton John and the tribute band singer?
No.
You haven't heard that one?
No, what?
So, Elton John's mother is still alive, right?
Oh, that guy. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I would not want to be him.
So what happened was, if you haven't heard this story out there, is Elton John and his mother, they don't get along too well. Rightfully so. They're both getting up there in years. And there was a surprise birthday party and I don't think it was a surprise birthday party, but it was a regular birthday party for Elton John's mother. And Elton couldn't make it. He was out on tour. He's supporting the whole Elton John clan, right? And Elton's mother was not pleased with this. So what did she do? She hired an Elton John tribute band singer. Yep. And Elton John was not happy about it.
No, I would not want to be that guy. Put it this way, if she would have contacted me, I would have politely said, I'm sorry.
Really? Would you have?
Absolutely. Because you don't want to be in the middle of a family feud I don't want Elton to hate me. I'm what I'm doing is trying to be the best. And that was one of the things that I made a commitment to myself. I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be the best in the world at what I do, where he would be proud of me if he saw what I did, trying to relive his early years and do what he did when he was younger. So I go after everything that I do to try to make it that, if Elton really saw it, then he'd be pleased and not like, who's that wanker?
It must be surreal for an artist like that. I mean, obviously Elton John knows he's made it, but you've really made it when you have a whole slew of tribute bands out there, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. We had a situation this past weekend where we were out playing, and we went backstage and hung out with Michael Anthony.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. That was
and,
really cool.
Michael looks at us and just shakes his head and laughs. And it's a cool thing when the tribute band artist actually gets to have an interaction with a member of the band that they're portraying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and Caleb, they're doing a documentary on Caleb's life right now. And I mean, Caleb was the guy in that album I used to look at when I was a kid, when I was 12 years old. And here, I know where he lives. I can go to his house any day, hang out with him. And I've had him join me on stage 3 times already.
Amazing.
So, I mean, it's like, yeah, maybe one of these days I'll get to meet Elton again. Even if I don't, I just hope that when he sees what I do, that I make him happy. When he sees the extent of what I try to do. I don't ever try to be me. I don't ever try to take credit on the side of, I don't ever think I'm him.
How would you feel if he did approach you and said, can you not do this? I don't like tribute band singers.
Well, I don't think I'd stop just because of the fact that I love doing this. And there's even articles out where the doctors and the have said they believe the music helped in my healing as well. Music, there's so much depth of what music can do in people's lives. And I really think from the standpoint of even the tributes right now, the really good ones that are out there, we get up and we play every night, every show we do, we become what they never got to see, what we grew up seeing.
Absolutely.
And there's more to life than scratching records and loops and Kanye West.
Absolutely.
I mean, seriously, the guys that can really play, well, what we're doing is, which is going to put people like Kanye out of business in the next generation, is there's a new generation of young kids that are picking up guitars and drums, and they're seeing, when I play Funeral for a Friend, we play 11 minutes, and it's spot on. Every little nuance of that song. And they see this, and they hear it, and they I want to do that. There's, heck with this DJing stuff, and they're picking up instruments. And now you see all over, man, you see kids that are 5 years old that can shred a guitar. So it's like music's going to have a whole other revolution in another 10 years. These kids are going to be phenomenal, and music's going to take a big turn. I'm looking forward to that. But we get to be inspiring to them because it's like they're seeing what they never got to other than what the record labels have been feeding them,
Correct.
And rap. And sorry for those that like rap, but it's like, what? Pick up a real instrument, play the thing. Yeah.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree with you more. And when I'm playing and I finish up a show and I go out and take pictures and, if someone wants me to sign something, which is always unbelievable to me, but it does happen, I find it a lot more gratifying in a way when the young kid comes up and is blown away as opposed to the guy that saw the real Van Halen 40 years ago.
Yeah.
There's something special about that, and it gives me hope that, yes, music will turn around. And let's face it, Kenny, if music didn't get so bad, we probably wouldn't have jobs right now, because this little scene that we're in has evolved into something that provides a lot of enjoyment for people.
Yeah, and the other thing, auto-tune, that sucks. Every time we go out, me and you, and we're on stage, we're singing it. There's no auto-tune. There's none of that. We're pitch on.
Well, not only is there no auto-tune, but we have to be compared to, does he sound like him? no, he does or not or whatever.
Right.
We're having to deal with that comparison. So, Kenny, as we wind this down,
okay,
I'm going to ask you a series of fun questions that I always ask everybody.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I only came today because of the food. You guys always have great food.
Here at UE Studios.
That's right.
Kenny,
it's all about the food.
Kenny's always here. Always here. All right, first question.
Okay.
You're on a desert island.
Okay.
And there's power on the desert island. Just enough power to where you can have a turntable. Which 3 albums do you have on that island?
Ooh.
And you cannot have an Elton John album.
I would probably want a Foreigner album.
Foreigner. First album would be good.
Oh, yeah.
Double Vision, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think the first
I
album.
have Double Vision, so yeah. Then there would be some Joni Mitchell.
Interesting.
Ooh, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
Okay, good 3. Next question. Favorite TV show growing up?
Leave It to Beaver.
Really?
No. Well, that was one of them.
Golly gee, Wally.
Yeah, no, that was one of them. I think the Partridge Family was like, that was it.
Okay, Partridge Family.
Yeah.
Beatles or Stones?
Beatles.
If I could play with one artist, it would be...
Paul McCartney.
Good. And one last question. It's my favorite question. When I was a kid, my favorite cereal was...
Captain Crunch.
Right. Regular Captain Crunch. Not
Oh,
the
yeah,
peanut
yeah,
butter
yeah.
Captain
No.
Crunch.
Captain Crunch.
Regular Captain
Yeah, it was
Crunch.
Captain Crunch. You need boxes of that.
And with Captain Crunch, Kenny Metcalf, tell everybody where everybody can find you.
Kenny Metcalf as Elton.com. Kenny Metcalf as Elton, Facebook, or just Kenny Metcalf on Facebook. At Kenny Metcalf, which would be Instagram and Twitter, or Elton The Early Years.
Kenny, thank you so much for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this week's Cover Your Ears podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. I tell you, Kenny Metcalf is one inspiring guy, and the whole Stryper thing, who knew? If you get the chance, definitely check him out live, because the only one that does Elton better is Elton himself. In fact, he's so good, Ultimate Ears hired Kenny for this year's Christmas party this Friday. Man, I hope he doesn't call me out to sing. This week's artist spotlight is Devin Kirtz. Devin was born and raised in my hometown of Long Beach, California, and was raised on soul and oldies. Devin, who at one time was a professional soccer player, has already recorded with some of the industry's top producers and has even written for some big artists, such as Jason Mraz and Jordan Sparks. So check it out. Here is Move by Devin Kirtz.
Possible to feel this way, where every time you leave I wanna beg you to stay. I hate the fact you've got a hold on me and I can barely breathe, yeah. But if you hold it tight, well darling, I can take you there. I'll be a roller coaster where life is no fair. We can hit the lights and start the show, but first I wanna know, do I make you wanna move? Do I make you wanna move? Do I make you wanna move? 'Cause you make me wanna move like that. And do I make you feel like there's nobody else in the room? We're all alone and baby, we've got nothing to lose. I got to pull you close to me. I'll be your gravity. But if you're stepping close, then darling, there's no turning back. If we're on the train at night, then there's no changing the tracks. I could take you anywhere you wanna go, but first I've gotta know, do I make you wanna move? Do I make you wanna move? Do I make you wanna move? 'Cause you make me wanna move like that. Do I make you wanna move? Do I make you wanna move? Do I make you wanna move? 'Cause you make me wanna move I make you wanna move? Do I make you wanna move? Do I make you wanna? Do I make you wanna move? Do I make you wanna? Never found it possible to feel this. Do I make you wanna? Every time you leave, I wanna beg you to stay. Do I make you wanna move? Hate the fact you gotta hold on. You make me wanna, and I can't barely breathe. Do I make you wanna? Hold it tight, well, darling, I can take you there. I'll be a roller coaster where life is no fair. Hit the lights and start the show. You make me wanna. First, I've gotta know, do I make you wanna? Do I make you wanna? Do I make you wanna? Do I make you wanna move?
Cover Your Ears is brought to you by Heil Sound. Heil is all about that perfect sounding microphone. And it just so happens they've been doing it for quite some time. 50 years of rock. And so be a part of it. Anybody that's been around that long is definitely for real. Check out their website at www.heilsound.com. Check for brand new episodes of Cover Your Ears each and every Tuesday. I'd love to hear your feedback too. You can contact me with any comments, suggestions, or questions at briangellervo@gmail.com. And if you like the podcast, please make sure and leave a review wherever you may have found Cover Your Ears. Do a guy a favor. Tell a friend. Oh, and if you have something interesting to say and you're in the business, let me know. It could just make for a real fun show. We'll see you next week.